What's up, guys? Usually I'd be filming inside of my work/study room, but today I'm filming in my bedroom because there's a Christmas market going on over across the street here in Montreal, and I love it. The Montreal Christmas spirit is a lot different than the American Kentucky Christmas experience. But that's not the point of this video. I got an insanely good message. I love it when you guys send me messages. Sometimes I won't have the answers, sometimes I will. And if you do send me a message or you write down a good comment below, I usually will try to make a video about it because I made this channel for you guys because so many of you guys ask me questions. So I'm doing my best. Anyways, the question comes from, we'll call him E. All right, I don't want to say his full name because this is a bit of a very personal problem. But E sends me the question. He says, Brandon, you being a high-level wrestler and now high-level submission grappler, could you maybe give some guidance to the tough versus stupid thing in youth wrestling? I recently had to pull my child, 6U, means 6 and under, from a particular youth wrestling program when the coach did not intervene when he bounced the back of his head off the mat pretty hard and was screaming. It seemed common sense, but the wrestling coach insisted he needed to work through it. My child plays third at state as a rookie, so he's not a wimpy kid. Is his common sense not so common? Thanks, blank name. The tough versus stupid argument. Thank you for the message, E. Dude, wrestling can sometimes have one of the most arbitrary cultures when it comes to tough. This exact thing right here. Sometimes wrestling culture, especially older wrestling culture, is so tough that it's stupid. In this situation, your kid, he hit his head and I guess essentially got talked down to or treated, almost ignored when he got hurt instead of the situation being handled. And he's 6 years old, guys. Keep this art 6 and under, right? The E said 6 and under. And I experienced this when I was a kid. I experienced things where I would get hurt, I would get actually injured, and I would get shamed. I would literally get shamed because I'm hurt and I don't want to train. Brandon, you don't want it bad enough. It would be things like I sprained my ankle, and anyone who has actually sprained their ankle knows how bad that actually is. And I would have coaches, I'm not going to name any particular coaches, who'd be like, Brandon, you're the P word or you're a B word because you don't want to train while you're hurt. Well, you don't want it bad enough. All the other guys, all the better guys, all the state champions, they're winning. They're training even when they're hurt. And that wasn't true. You know, if you actually have an injury, now, of course, there's a big difference between hurt and injured, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But when you're injured or even just severely hurt, you need time to reset, even if it's just the day up. One day is not going to mean as much as you think it is. Now, there's the accumulation of skipping practices and stuff, etc., etc. But one day is not going to hurt. Checking up on your student when they get injured is not going to hurt you as the coach. Wrestlers have the biggest egos. I mean, we all have an ego, right? Ego, it just means the self, right? That's pretty much what the word means. But wrestling coaches, especially older wrestling coaches, I would say the generation that was coaching like now and basically up to the time that I was coaching and before, I guess, it's changing a lot. The culture's becoming a lot more fun, a lot more present, a lot more grateful, and a lot more nice. But lots of these older wrestling coaches treat kids just horrible. They treat them ridiculously. They talk down to them. They gaslight them into training more than they need to. They gaslight them into training when they're hurt or they're injured. And this includes little babies, 6 years old, 6 to 12 years old, you should not be training hard. 6 to 12 years old, you get hurt. Hey man, are you okay? You should at least be checking on the kid. Right? I mean, I'll even say in college. Now, obviously there's a stipulation that like, okay, you're in college, you really do have to, push a little bit more. But even then, you're still human. You still feel pain, And one of the things that people don't talk about is like when you get hurt, even if it's not a crazy injury, right? When you get hurt, it's more than a physical injury. There's lots of mental trauma that comes with getting hurt. Now, of course, I believe in mental toughness. I believe in pushing through things. If it's the state finals and you rolled your ankle, but you need to win, then you got to do what you got to do, right? But if it's just practice, right? It's not the week of anything. It's just one practice. The coaches didn't even talk to the kid. The coaches didn't ask if the kid was okay. The coaches were being jerks. They were being assholes. Like, let's be real. The coaches are being assholes. And it's one of the things I hate about wrestling and I love about wrestling. I love that wrestling is tough. It made me a tougher person. It allowed me to know how to win and how to get big wins when I'm tired, when I'm feeling a little busted up. It taught me how to do hard things in real life, like run a business, even though when I first started doing my business stuff, it was not successful initially. Now, 3 years into it, it's extremely successful. Wrestling taught me how to be persistent and how to be patient, how to be resilient. But what comes to what comes with that, the bad stuff that comes with that toughness that's made me who I am today, is that sometimes wrestling teaches you how to push through things when you should not push through them. Wrestling teaches you that, you know, you're less than a person sometimes, that like it's not okay for you to have emotions, and it's not okay for you to actually feel bad things, because if you embrace those bad things, that you're seen as weak, right? I'm not one of these guys that's crying about all men should go to therapy and stuff. Whatever, maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. I don't care. That's not the point of this conversation. But there is a bit of a toxic culture with wrestling coaches, and I assume this wrestling coach probably wrestled in college or something like that. There's this thing where like they project their toughness onto these little kids, and they hold them to such a high standard that it's almost toxic. And I would like to say this. I would like to ask this coach this: how do you want that kid to view you in 20 years? Now, I'm not saying don't push your kid. Some idiot is going to be in the comment section and be like, Brandon, you're just so soft. You don't understand. Like, if we don't push kids these days, they're just so weak and such babies. Shut up. You're so stupid. I have friends who train at Penn State. They train 4 times a week. They're not killing themselves. They're not pushing through tons of crappy injuries, right? Of course, there's stuff that goes on, right? But at the end of the day, we think we need to be tougher, we need to be harder, we need to do more than you actually need to do. And sometimes the best thing is, especially in these cases, sometimes the best thing is to go up to your student, go up to your athlete in this case, and be like, hey man, are you okay? How are you feeling? 6 years old too, by the way. Keep that in mind. 6 years old. Hey man, how are you doing? How's your head feeling? Are you good? Hey, you should go sit down for a second. You're done with practice today. Practice is done. Just go sit down for a second. Feel good. Text me tomorrow. Text me tonight, actually. Tell me how are you feeling today? If you're not feeling great, you know, maybe you should probably go to the hospital, go get that checked, and, you know, actually text me tomorrow after you went to the hospital, after you get it checked, to make sure there's no injuries. If there's no injuries, all right, I'll see you back in practice. Maybe you just got hurt. But things like head trauma, your head hitting the ground. This is a 6-year-old guy. It's a 6-year-old before some dumb idiot comes here and says, well, just be tough. Because there's always that guy. There's all these old dumb people who are like, just you need to be tougher. Head injuries are crazy. They ruin careers. They end careers. Noah Certain, All-American from the University of Missouri, 2 days ago, retired from wrestling. One of the best wrestlers in the country, Division I, retired from wrestling because he had persistent and consistent concussions. Myra Shapiro from Cornell, Division I All-American, I think he got 3rd place last year, is having trouble this year because of consistent and persistent head trauma. Injuries are not a joke. Head injuries are even less of a joke, and they affect you further in life. So sorry I went on and rambled. I think sometimes wrestlers and wrestling coaches can be too tough for their own good. They can be so tough that they're dumb. It's the truth. They're so dumb sometimes. It just is the case. I think you did the right thing by pulling your kid out of that program. I think that coach is toxic. I think there's obviously a chance that maybe you could communicate with that coach and be like, hey man, I did not like the way you handled that. Maybe the coach didn't even know that he didn't realize, you know, he's in the heat of the moment. So maybe it's worth having some communication if it's a really good gym, because it really is important to have those good youth clubs. But it's good to have that communication, be like, hey man, I don't know if you really understand, but my kid, he's 6 and under, right? He hit his head on the mat. Concussions are a real thing. We don't know. You don't know what happened to him after he hit his head. It hurt. He hit his head. He could have got hurt. We don't know. In that moment, we feel like you didn't respond correctly. You didn't help him out. You didn't encourage him. Instead, maybe you were a little bit belittling, and you felt entitled to more work from a kid who possibly just got a concussion. But yeah, and then if the coach isn't receptive, bro, go to another gym. This is a freaking red flag in wrestling coaches. You know, I don't know. I really don't see this happening as much in Jiu-Jitsu. I really think the culture in Jiu-Jitsu is so much better in that way than wrestling. Of course, there's the flaws of it being a little bit too soft sometimes in Jiu-Jitsu, but regardless, I think you should talk to the coach, communicate with him, see if he really understands what he did, honestly, with the mistake that he made. And if the coach apologizes, if he's like, hey man, I didn't look at it that way, like I was just in the moment, it was practice, I didn't understand that. Remember, you're the customer, you're paying those membership fees. There's always another gym, there's always more coaches. If you and your son are passionate, he's gonna get good at wrestling regardless of that coach. But that's my opinion, man. I'm sorry for the long video. It's been a while since I've been so fired up and motivated from a question, and it's because I've personally experienced things like this where I've been shamed, ignored, or made fun of for injuries as a wrestler, and it's very annoying. It's even more annoying when this happens to kids, you know, because that is all they are, is they're kids, and life is a lot more than just wrestling, even for those little guys. With that being said, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you made it to the end of the video, I just want to always shout out my instructionals. I have instructionals that start from beginner, dominate the hand fight, all the way to more advanced duck unders, and everything in between with single legs, underhooks, etc., etc. These are all moves that I use and have used consistently throughout my career. I've done close to 60, 70 jiu-jitsu matches. I've done hundreds of countless jiu-jitsu wrestling matches rather, and these are techniques that I like to use. I'm not the best wrestler in the world, but I do pride myself on my ability to teach and convey information. I've been a teacher for over 3 years now. I've taught over 70 seminars or wrestling camps, and I love, more than anything, more than competing, I love teaching, and I think that you guys will find these instructionals useful. The one I would start with if you're brand new and you just want to kind of build some confidence with your wrestling is Dominate the Hand Fight, because it's a real introduction into making connections, learning how to move, developing the 4 essential concepts of hand fighting, and then you can go on from there. With that being said, guys, you guys can check out the links in the description below to find those instructionals, or if you watch this video, you'll see that links come up. Like, I'm sure one will come up right here. Or actually, I'm not sure. A link's probably going to come up right here. Other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one.